In today's complex business environment, leaders need not only to be prepared for the worst, but also to build their resilience. At The Human Factor, Corporate Integrity Matters' Sonia Sterneman invites top executives, board members, and industry experts to reflect and talk about the realities of corporate integrity, risk, and ethical leadership. As an international governance authority, independent director, and entrepreneur, she understands the challenges leaders face. Integrity and ethical leadership are not just principles. They build resilience, enhance reputation, and create strategic competitive advantage for organizations and for individuals.
Today, I'm honored to welcome my colleague Salih Ahmed Islam. Salih is a very experienced global expert with more than 25 years of professional experience in internal audit. The textile, iron and steel, petroleum, construction, FMCA and retail industries are the ones he masters as a leader and role model in internal audit. But not only that, he's one of the experts when it comes to managing the expectations of various stakeholders with diverse cultural backgrounds too. And that's exactly what we are talking about today. Integrity is not only an important to him when it comes to business. As a caring father and husband, he wants the best for his loved ones. So Salih was already one of my interview guests way back, and we will link to the episodes in the show notes later. We are now digging deeper with this specific session, covering the challenges, trends from the perspective of internal audit when it comes to their work with the board of directors and C-level, and also talk a little bit about AI. So Salih was already one of my interview guests way back, and we will link to the episode in the show notes. We are now digging deeper with this specific session, covering the challenges, trends from the perspective of internal audit when it comes to their work with the board of directors and C-level. So I'm very glad to have you here, Salih, spending the next few minutes together.
Thank you very much. I am very also glad to be here.
It's always a pleasure to discuss these kind of topics together, and we thought that now we have to record again one of our podcast episodes, because I think it's also going to interest our audience, because what we saw over the last few years, that also a lot of board members are joining our podcast, and I got the feedback that they would like to have some kind of deep dive session also when it comes to internal audit and the expectations, wishes and trends. So I think it would be very interesting now to hear also from your experience where things could have worked better, maybe also with a few examples in the past, and from your perspective. So maybe I would like to start with one of the hot topics always when people interact. So do you have any kind of examples, good examples, but maybe also the ones you think we should do better as board members when it comes to communication with internal audit?
Of course, in my point of view as internal auditor, there are two types of communication, with management and with audit committee and the board. I mean, clear communication is the backbone of internal auditing, that's for sure. One thing I have learned is that the message is just as important as the method. We can write the perfect audit report, but if it is not communicated in a way that resonates with the audience, it is not good. Whether it's management or audit committee, it doesn't matter. It won't create the needed impact. So I remember during one audit, we uncovered the control weaknesses in procurement process. For example, instead of just sending a report, we sat down with the purchasing manager and explained the root cause. That's how the weakness impacted the operations and possible solutions we discussed with him. Then we presented the audit committee our final report. I came with the audit point, but we already solved the problem. So I explained to them. So it was already over. It was the audit point and the solution came together. So the communication between the management is also very important, the communication with the audit committee and the board. So the board in general, they like the solutions and they like the results. So as internal auditors, if we present the audit points only, it is not enough for them. I don't know if I clear myself.
No, absolutely, because that's also what I see when I just switched to my role as chair of audit committees. That's exactly what we would need to have. We need to have the assurance that we do the right things, and it's also checked by our internal audit team. And I think it's always, as you said, it's always good if operations understands what the findings are, and they try to. No, of course they need to solve it, but that it's not against each other. It's just a different role you have in your organization. And as you said, it's even better when the issue or the findings are already solved, or they have a clear way how to do that within a time frame which is also supporting the organization. So what I mean with that, and I will also come back to that question later. So how fast are findings closed? I think that's also a part maybe you have a lot of experience in. What I don't like to have if the findings are not closed over a too long time, because the company is at risk. Otherwise, internal audit would not bring it up. And if the time frame or the deadlines are too far away, it doesn't help the organization. And I often see that discussion starts with the deadlines.
Exactly. I mean, deadlines. Yeah, this is the most difficult part of personally in my experiences, because managing audit findings is about follow through. A finding doesn't end when the report is issued. It's only truly closed when the risk is mitigated. So that's why this means good follow up. It is the hardest part. That's my opinion, because maybe, at least for me, I mean, it is the hardest part of the job. After the report is issued, when everything is decided, sometimes it is hard for the departments to take an action to solve the issue. Sometimes it's a budget problem, sometimes it is a lack of employees, etc., etc. And every time, without an exception, the departments say that they are very, very busy. So it is hard.
They are, that's true. They are very busy. They do not have enough resources to do that in a shorter time frame, etc., etc. But on the other hand, when you put yourself into the role or of a board and maybe also an audit committee, we need to solve and mitigate, solve the findings and mitigate the risk. So, is there anything you would wish to be understood from a board side when it comes to that work? Or could we support as board members more?
Exactly. I mean, as board members, they should support us in every way, because we are as powerful as the board backs us. Internal auditors' power comes from the top, that's for sure. We are powerful when the top management backs us. Once I was working in a construction company, that's the example that I'm going to give you. It's very specific about this subject. I was assigned to audit the expenses of the construction projects. I found that there was a huge spending, like $50,000, something like that, without any invoice or receipt. When I asked the project manager, it was another country, he said that he paid the advances of the workers, rented some cranes for construction, etc., etc., and he mentioned a lot of other expense notes. But there was no proof that he did those things. So I wrote my audit report and explained how it should be. You know what happened? The chairman of the board of the audit committee and chairman of the board of the company told me not to bother the project manager because he's trying to finish the project to get the money from the employer. So this was the end of my authority among those people. So I couldn't go
Absolutely.
back there and audit again because my authority after this decision was zero. So the moral of the story is the top management should be with you. If there are mistakes, they should not look the other way, you know?
What was the consequences you took after that?
I left the company.
Yeah, but I
I
think
left
it's
the
really
company
what
because
happened.
there was nothing for me to do there. After I worked with them about a year or so. I
Hmm.
went to many projects, but especially that project that I mentioned, it was in Kazakhstan, and the project manager was managing 3 or 4 projects at the same time. So it was the major income for the company. So I couldn't go back there and check their expenses or check their operations. So it was how can I say, it was meaningless for me to go there. So I told the chairman that I'm going to leave the job. So I resigned.
So did you resign and you told the chairman that you do so? Did you tell him or her why you do that, or you just resigned?
Of course, no. Of course, I told him.
Okay.
He was a guy, the chairman was a guy who wants to do things in a corporate way. It was a company which grew very fast. So, but the employees were not ready for it. And the chairman also tried to make it, everything is on the right way, because there was no internal department before me. So they hired me to form the department, to do the operations, to do audit procedures and everything. But the income or the money they should receive became more priority, you know. So I explained, of course, to the chairman why I am leaving and how it should be and stuff like that. But he also confessed me that the company is not ready for that.
Yeah. So, yeah, and I think that's exactly what happens to many other internal auditors too. So if they are not supported by the management team or the boards, so they cannot do their job. So when we are now, because I think it's a while ago since you left that company, when you look at your responsibility you have right now, we are now in 2025. So what keeps you awake and why when it comes to internal audit and also the trends we see right now when it comes to regulations? So how does that impact you? Maybe these are now 3 questions, but what keeps you awake, why, and what impacts your daily work right now?
I'm experienced. I'm a dinosaur in this profession. When I
Absolutely.
don't
So
do my
nothing
job
keeps you awake.
properly, I can't sleep at night.
Good. Good. But
If
maybe
I'm not
there are some
satisfied with my
challenges.
work, yeah, of course, of course. Always, yeah. In every profession, there are some challenges, but in our work, we are not liked very much in the company. So we have to tell people that we are not trying to audit the people. We are trying to audit the process. Sometimes they believe us, sometimes they don't. So what keeps me awake at night? If I do my job properly, I can sleep very good. If I'm not satisfied with my work, it keeps me awake. Let me give you an example. If I examined, for example, 10 invoices out of 100 and found nothing suspicious, it is not enough. That keeps me awake when I go home. I should examine more until I have the satisfaction that everything is okay, there is no problem, and every invoice is done properly, paid properly, or according to the procedures and everything. Sometimes there is not enough time to do such a thing, to expand the invoice selection. But just giving you an example, but it's okay if I keep myself satisfied if I done enough work, you know.
I assume you always do a great job, and you that's the reason why you can sleep also, and nothing keeps you awake. What I also like to understand, or maybe also hear from your perspective, with all the new risks we have, we are more digitalized than we ever used to be. I think the new technologies, when we could also talk about AI, is that a trend which, how should I say, which puts your position in a different position, your role in a different position, or additional challenges, or how do you react to this kind of shift we now face for the last 2 years?
Yeah, in AI especially is new for our profession, and there are some advantages and disadvantages to using it. But instead of AI, for a long time, we are using data mining, and we are using some softwares to help us during our audits or before audits. Sometimes we are using like programs like SAP reporting and those type of things. So data mining is important for our work, and it helps us which areas to focus on more. So when we do the risk assessment before we audit, it is always helpful to use such tools. But AI is something new, and there are some, of course, advantages and some paperwork we are doing with AI, and it helps a lot. For example, preparing the reports and writing the reports, we are getting help from the AI a lot because it gives us more time to focus on the audit findings and how to solve them when writing the report, especially the long parts of the report. It helps us to manage and use the time more efficient way, you know. But other than that, personally, I'm a little bit old fashioned. So I'm using AI, but not in a very effective way, maybe.
Okay. So it means that when I correctly understand you, at the moment, your department, your internal audit department only uses AI for the report writing and nothing else.
Sometimes, no, not only that, sometimes we are using AI to access our datas and find anomalies about the datas. We are giving AI the data and trying to find quickly where the anomalies are. Sometimes the trends are changing. For example, if we paid for a certain supplier, let's say 100,000 for a year. During the years, when it becomes 50,000 or 200,000, those spikes can give us idea. AI helps them to figure it out and find it more quickly. So we are using it not only for the reports, but there is no, established way to do it. I mean, there is no systematic way to do it in internal audit, especially for our
Not
department
yet.
currently. Not
Okay,
yet,
not yet.
yes.
No, it's very interesting because I think that's also what I see with other internal audit departments. They try to find or they try to establish, and they are establishing um, new ways to support their work. So that's also the reason why I asked you how you are doing it right now, and maybe also how do you find the people who can do that? Because at the end, it's all about how can we prompt, and are people trained in prompting, and what kind of data do we have available to be analyzed?
I see. I mean, yeah, we are not using so much, but you know, not only prompts, when you ask AI to examine an Excel sheet, for example, or some data obtained from the SAP or some other sources, they do it. I mean, the AI can do it. And it gives you the summary of the findings that it established. So you can have an idea what you are looking for from there, you know. So for the prompt side, I'm just asking plainly.
Okay. But on the other hand, I think I hear you, but because you are the expert in knowing the fraud pattern, and we also have to train AI to tell them what kind of fraud pattern are we looking for, because otherwise the anomalies cannot be detected. You know what I mean? So that's the reason. So
Exactly, exactly,
how do you
exactly.
train your in? And that's I think that's the point. So because if the fraud pattern are correctly implemented, then I think the AI can do a great job for us.
Exactly, exactly. I mean, how can I say, the AI is part of our job, that's for sure. But we have some in our department, we have some prompts that we used before, and it's also effective. And we are storing it. We are changing time to time the some of the prompts, because if you want the better result from AI, you have to give them a lot of data and a lot of explanation that you are looking for, the specifics of your focus areas and those type of things. If you do that, AI can help you. But in generic way, if you want to if you want AI to help you, it doesn't help you when you say, for example, here are the most purchased suppliers of last year. How can you tell me which supplier is at risk of supplying materials for factory, for example? So that's so generic. So the result of answers of AI is not helping you that time.
That's exactly what I meant when you said I just do it plainly. So you don't do that because I'm pretty sure that you have founded
Oh, yeah.
prompts covering the fraud patterns
Of course,
you
of
expect
course,
based
of
based
course.
on your risk landscape. No, absolutely. So, is there anything or any kind of tip you could also give your internal audit peers all over the world when it comes to managing the board and managing the management team today?
Yeah, I can say, yeah, I know what you mean. I like to say we are not friends or enemies. I mean, we are allies of the truth. That's our motto.
Yeah.
Independence. Yeah, exactly. We are
Yeah.
allies of the truth. If truth is with the management, we are friendly to them. If truth is not with the management, we are enemies in their eyes. So independence is also important, but it doesn't mean to keep the distance between the management. You can be approachable, collaborative, and still objective. There's a thin line. That's our job. Is everybody is discussing in these days. They say that internal auditors cannot be friends with the management. I think differently. You can be friends, but there should be a line. So let me tell you a story about it. Once I was a good friend with a finance manager I was working for in a company when I was young. So we were seeing each other with our families. So they were inviting us to their house. We were doing the same. So dinners, etc. We were going out together. When I audit the same person at work, I tried to check some documents at the finance department. You know what he said? Salih, you don't have to look those. Trust my word, there is nothing there. He said like this. Then I realized that the friendship was interrupting my work. So I was young then, not experienced. So what I'm trying to say, you can be friends with the management, but they should also know that friendship is separated with work. There's a thin line. So my advice to all internal auditors, they should track that line and not to cross it.
Absolutely. So thank you very much for that also example at the end of our conversation. It was a pleasure to listen to you again and for your contribution. It was great. And also allies of the truth. I think it's a good quote I would also like to promote afterwards. And of course, we will also make the link in our show notes to your LinkedIn profile, because you are one of those contributor on LinkedIn who really provides a lot of information. So thank you very much, and I wish you all the best for the future.
Thank you very much, Sonia. Thank you for inviting me and as a guest to express my experiences and about the audit and the board. Thank you very much also.
Thank you. This was another episode of the Human Factor Corporate Integrity Matters, where we uncover the leadership strategies that define governance, risk, and resilience. Today, my guest was Salih Ahmed Islam. Guided by the principle, corporate integrity is the foundation of trust, resilience, and long-term success. Thank you for listening. I'm Sonja Stirnemann, your host. Stay aware, act decisively, and lead with integrity. And in Salih's word, be an ally of the truth. Take care and have a good time.